I know I haven't put one of these together for a little while now, and it's just been I've been very busy with things lately. But I thought I'd focus this time around on something I think every writer needs to do: research. Believe it or not, you can find out some amazing facts if you take the time to look into something. For example, did you know that the character Jubilation Lee has a bit of a strategic side to her? She comes up with strategies that you might not think should come from someone with her level of intelligence. Of course, her level of intelligence could also be linked to a disorder that she has called dyscalculia. I think that's the exact term. Which is basically what dyslexia is, except it only goes with numbers. Now, if you didn't know that she is this bit of a strategist, I would invite you to look into several issues of Generation X. In particular, the sequence that I believe is in issues 12, 13, and 14, where after Emplate captures all of Generation X, she starts, while they're all captive, literally berating, egging him on, taunting him. I mean, let's face it, the title of the one issue in that storyline is Top 10 Reasons Why Emplate is a Loser. After she finally basically goes in on his family, which is a very, very touchy subject with Emplate, he basically starts to feed on her. And he basically says, "I hope this is what you wanted. You will die soon. You know nothing of my family," or something along those lines. And she basically responds, "Yep, you're right. I know nothing about your family, but I know tons about my powers and how I have very little control over them when I'm angry. And judging by how upset you are, you have even less." Resulting in big explosion, and Generation X is free. And Emplate quipping, once again, "The eyes are bigger than the stomach." In follow-up, after he has enthralled Sync and sent Sync to his hometown, the Generation X goes to follow, the girl mainly. After a confrontation and Sync runs off, they start to go to pursue, and Jubilee says, "No, I'm staying here. Paige, you keep going after him. Monet, you fly and watch. Keep an eye out, and when it's time, deliver the knockout punch." When they look at her, she says basically, "I stay here, he loses my power to glom onto. Paige, he can't really mimic your ability. Monet, you stay away from him and deliver the knockout blow when the time comes." To which both Monet and Paige, surprised, basically go, "That's actually a good idea." I mean, lately Jubilee gets overlooked and dismissed, but she's actually, when it comes to it, she's a brilliant strategist. She has also been one of the ones to break the predestination paradox. Again, you'd have to look back into about, I believe, issues 51 through 53 of Wolverine, when she was basically tagging along with Wolverine, and they have an encounter with Mojo. And Mojo basically sought her out. His plan was to, at least he was going to stop the big crunch. And the result would have been, but to do that, he basically had agreed if Jubilee requested him to stop, he would stop at the small cost for being his slave. The result? Well, when he confronted her to capture her, he had a servant with him named Abscissa. And you'll have to look that word up because it just throws you off. But she had this ability to animate and control the many chains that were attached to her body. And when Jubilee doubted that she would say yes, he says, "Why, you already have," revealing that Abscissa is Jubilee, older. What Jubilee does then was basically she refused, canceling out the existence of Abscissa. But given Mojo's insane amount of abilities, I wouldn't put this character totally out. In many future things, she is literally shown to be very smart and very tactical and put in a position of leadership. But of course, everybody likes to overlook this. But speaking of other things that you learn through research, did you know that in the game Eternal Darkness, the original concept was to have 5 ancients? Play through this classic on the GameCube. It is heralded as a very good game, and some even say it's Spectrum Knight's magnum opus, which I totally agree with. That company sort of collapsed after that game. But the initial plan was to have literally 5 ancients. They dropped one, I guess, due to constraints, but there's still remnants of the character of the 5th ancient being there. Here's another thing you can think about if you ever follow some of the game series. Look at the game Quest for Glory. There's a creature in the game called an Antwerp. It's sort of like a blob-like thing. And apparently there's only been ever 2, quote, heroes who was able to capture and kill the Antwerp. They're known as the 2 guys from Andromeda, who are the, quote, creators of the Space Quest series, and in the 3rd Space Quest game they're rescued by the protagonist of Space Quest, Roger Wilco. Which basically hints that the Space Quest games and the Quest for Glory games happen in the same, quote, universe. It literally does make you wonder. And this is all stuff that you can find out doing research. You would be amazed at what you could find out with the research, and you can incorporate it into your stories. I'm going to cite my own stuff here because I did do research when I first started the story note that started with my Kale storyline changes. And one of the things I found out, because I was a bit enamored with the character Penance, who, if you're to believe some of the gossip, she was supposed to be the first deaf mutant. But one thing that sort of stayed standard with her character, even after the horrible retcon crap that Larry Hama did, she was born in Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, which basically makes her language, her native tongue, Serbo-Croatian. And believe me, I looked that up. It was a bit amazing. You look up anything. You do enough research, you can find out stuff. That's how I found out about Abscissa. I'm going to butcher that word. And later incorporated that into one of my Kale storyline stories. It is no doubt what you need to find. So I recommend whenever you do stories, research stuff. You'd be amazed at what you can find, what little tidbits you can throw out there in a story. If you doubt me on this, look up Jubilee versus Robin. You'll find some interesting things there. Look up characters in Monster High. I can guarantee you'll find links to Ever After High. Trust me, I know this. I got a daughter. Look up anything. You might be surprised at what you find. You might be floored by what you find. Hell, if you find something you think is, quote, interesting and research-wise, if you want, if you listen to this, put it in my comments section. I'd be interested to find out what your research has brought out. That's all I got to say in this one. Take care.